Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a little different. I thought I would take this time to just talk a little bit more about what my pregnancy's been like throughout this time during a pandemic. And I think what really prompted me doing this is that I've been interacting with so many first-time moms on social media that it just got me thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine if somebody was pregnant for the first time going through this. It's already scary enough to be pregnant and to be going to your doctor visits and making sure baby's okay and all of those things. So to throw in COVID-19 on top of it, I can only imagine, because it is for me the third time around, it can be a daunting process, and it's something that's a little intimidating, and your anxiety's out the roof and you're wondering like, gosh, is this okay? Am I allowed to go to the hospital? Is my partner able to come with me? What's happening? So anyways, I want to also thank Stand Up for APA, which is short for Stand Up for Accurate Prenatal Answers, for partnering with me on this video, because they were able to give me a lot of answers, especially being pregnant during COVID. So we're just gonna talk a little bit about it. So let's just start with getting pregnant in the first place. It's already hard enough without a pandemic to worry about and to think about. And right away, you have so many questions running through your mind. Like, am I okay to start telling people? Is my baby's health okay? At what point do I know that this is really happening? How am I now going to make sure that myself as well as my baby are healthy and we are doing everything we can to make sure that we're maintaining that health? I think one of the biggest questions is, how do I minimize my risk of infection but also make sure I'm getting the proper care I need? So that means going to doctor's visits, going to the hospital if you need. Another question that can come up during the first trimester is around testing for baby, and how do we make sure that we're getting all the necessary testing done for our baby's health, making sure that we're not exposed, we're limiting exposure to things like COVID. And then I think another question that we start thinking about differently is around insurance, because prior to having kids, it's you, it's maybe your partner. Now you have to think about children. A question that can come up, especially during times like this with the pandemic, is my insurance limiting access to the tests and things that I need for my baby? Let's talk about prevention. Like, how as a pregnant woman are you going to make sure that you do not have a likely chance of getting COVID-19? According to the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, they clearly state that we should be doing the same exact things that others are doing in general. That means washing your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds, hum the birthday tune 2 times, that's what we've been told. If you're gonna be using hand sanitizer, make sure it has at least 60% alcohol in it. That's gonna be effective. Make sure you're staying home when you can. So if you don't have to go out, try not to, or send your partner out if that's at all possible. And if you are gonna go out, for me, I was advised to make sure I'm always wearing a mask. I know in some places it's now mandated that you have to wear a mask when you go, especially grocery shopping, but a mask and gloves too. I wear gloves when I go to my OBs because it's just something that I'm near the hospital, and even though it should be like one of the safest places right now, I'm just not taking any chances. And then also social distancing, so 6 feet apart. Wherever you are, try and stay 6 feet apart. I think that's just like one of those things that's really hard to get used to, especially with having kids, but you know, it's something that I have been actively trying to implement. One other thing you might want to talk to your OB about, if they haven't talked to you about it too already, is telemedicine. Because I'm at the stage where I'm at 31 weeks, I go in not only to my regular OB, but I also go to a high-risk OB because I am AMA, which is advanced maternal age. I'm 38 years old. Even though I feel healthy and everything's going well with my pregnancy so far, it's something that, you know, is just recommended for me. But if it's at all possible, you can talk to your doctor, depending on what stage you are in your pregnancy and how you're doing with it, if you can do telemedicine visits in between actual office visits. And that is going to help, obviously, prevent any exposure to anything that might be out there. Next, I want to talk about testing, primarily first trimester testing, and I'm referring to the NIPT. So that is something that, for me, being, again, AMA, being over 35, I was able to get that done immediately when I went in for my first trimester screening. I think a lot of people think of it as like, oh, you can find out the baby's sex. You can find out the sex, but it's also very imperative to understanding if your baby is gonna be free of any chromosomal abnormalities, such as Down syndrome. So that's something that this test really helps you determine, especially with everything we are going through right now. It's To me, it was such a sigh of relief, especially with my age. This is the first time I've had the NIPT testing. Previously, I was pregnant with both my son and daughter at 30 and 31. So I didn't do any of this, and I didn't even know it existed. And then now it was something that was just provided to me because of my age. But what I didn't realize was that there are a lot of women, especially under the age of 35, that don't realize they can take the NIPT testing, but unfortunately it's not always covered by insurance. And to the point of getting the testing done, there are services now that you can do remotely that will collect the blood to be drawn for the testing at your convenience. So you don't have to actually go in office to get it done. And that's something that's, that you can look into too, especially if you are trying to draw out your actual OB visits. Lastly, I kind of touched on this, but I really want to talk about the availability of these tests. So I didn't know this until recently, and that's only because I got pregnant again over the age of 35. I was wondering, like, wow, times have changed. Things have just been so much easier to collect data, and I found out the sex so quickly, and I found out how everything was going. And then I realized that there are some really big insurance carriers like Aetna and United Health that do not have mandatory testing for women who are under the age of 35. Instead, they have more dated testing from like the 1960s. So to me, it just doesn't make any sense why this wouldn't be in place and why it wouldn't be something that insurance companies universally offer to expecting mothers. Also, a lot of these older tests that are in place tend to have a higher rate of false positives and false negatives, which is a huge deal for many reasons. Being as dated as it is, these tests can miss up to 22% accuracy of letting people know if your child is going to have Down syndrome. Now, what that means is, one, parents are not prepared financially, medically, emotionally. You just have no idea what to expect because you weren't expecting it. Here's an example. If a family knows that they're going to have a child born with Down syndrome, they should be giving birth at a tertiary hospital, a facility that's going to help accommodate them. On the flip side of a false negative is a false positive, which is just as hard to kind of wrap your head around, especially as expecting parents, because let's say you're pregnant and you're told that you are going to have a child that is going to have Down syndrome. You're starting to prepare for that medically, financially, and research has shown that these older tests result in 95 times false positives, which means that people think that they're going to have children with Down syndrome and then they don't. So you're probably going through a lot of these things that are causing extra anxiety and extra testing, such as the amniocentesis. Amniocentesis is when they go in and they prick you with like a needle in the amniotic sac, and it's really invasive, can also potentially cause miscarriage. So if that can be avoided, it should be. Here's my big takeaway from some of the stuff that I've been learning is that we as women, and especially women that are expecting or thinking of having families, we need to be pushing back more on insurance companies that they are providing the access to testing like the NIPT to all of us. Not only if we're over 35, every woman that is expecting should be given this test, and it should be included and covered under insurance. There are some positives. There are companies like Google and Cisco that are securing NIPT testing through insurance companies like Aetna and United Healthcare, but that's only the start. We have so much more that needs to get done. And for me, this is just something that's really, I think, hits home because I've had babies, at 30, and I'm now having a child at 38. And if I were pregnant right now, at that time, 5 years ago, I would want this testing. I would want that access. So here's what you can do. If your employer does provide insurance through Aetna or United Health, go to your HR and really push back on having the NIPT testing available to expecting women. And another is getting involved with organizations like Stand Up for APA, Stand Up for Accurate Prenatal Answers. You just have to go to their website. I'm gonna link it down in the description box, and you can register under their website to take a stand. I just think that the more we talk about this and the more education women have around this, it's gonna be so beneficial. So I hope that this video was useful to any of you women out there that are thinking about having children, that are expecting, especially for those that are under 35 that don't realize that this testing can be and should be available to you, covered free of charge, because it's a pricey test. So again, for me, having been 30 without it and now 38 with it, I just think it's something that all of us should have access to, no matter our age. So if you have any questions for me or Stand Up for APA, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.